And good morning, all you wonderful people. Oh, I rebooted, which means I've got to turn down the mic gain. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land.
Outside the box said hi.
Hi, outside the box. The Wadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. Who was it that just said good morning? Oh, it was outside the box. Good morning, Crispian. So, good morning to Alan, Andrew, David T, Don S. Imi is here. Crispian said Imi was making dulcet tones. Are you singing, Imi? Kim S, Michael Wise, Mitchell is here, along with the text-to-speech. So remember, you can talk to me. Where am I up to? I think I said hello to Crispian. I can't remember. Peter Oakley, Scott Miller, some call it fun. Stephen George is here. Tassie Bob, David Howes, John Whips, Johnny Bergdahl, all the way from Sweden. Sharky Stephen, Tabraz. I really hope I'm saying your name properly, Tabraz. I'm not sure.
Imogen Ann said I chimed in this morning.
That's good, Imi. Oh, OBS has quit. OBS keeps quitting on my
Mitchell
laptop.
Said maybe we should add like checkboxes for you lol grin.
Yeah, checkboxes so I can keep track. No, that's okay. It wouldn't help. Good morning to the lane, Wagon Loads, Keith H. Good morning, Keith. Which reminds me, is it? Yes, next weekend is barbecue weekend. Again, with the Keith H celebratory barbecue. Gavin is here, Russell Rainey, Ben Straker, Jordan Reese, Austin, Stephen Harrison, and Sion, the unexpected maker. And I'm sure many others as well who just have not. Tabraze. Okay, thank you, Tabraze. So that is how it's pronounced. What to do today? What to do? Well, I had an idea, but I started doing some preparation for it, but I didn't get anywhere. So my idea is not going to happen. Ben, 1 a.m. in the UK here. Yes. Scott said, after all this time, Sion is generally expected. Yeah. Yes, Sion, we expect you. It looks like the focus is really bad on my camera. No, or maybe it's just that I am out of focus. It's just my face. It's the way I look. What am I doing? I don't know. My bench is totally covered in stuff at the moment for a project I was working on for a client. Yeah, as Sion said, Sion said, I don't make it every week. Sorry. That's okay. I don't make it every week to your live stream either. I'm sorry about that. In fact, the last live stream, the last few live streams, Sion has been building a robot arm. I think it's the Arctos robot arm. And last Wednesday, I think it was, I opened YouTube for some reason, and it was, so for reference, Sion normally starts streaming at dark o'clock on a Wednesday morning. Starts early, like 7 a.m. or something. And so the stream's normally over by, business hours. And I opened YouTube at something like 11 o'clock, or maybe even like lunchtime. I think it might have been almost lunchtime. And Sion's stream was still going after 5 hours. We were still building, still building the robot arm. Yeah, 7 hours last week. Yeah. So Sion, I often have your stream open even though I don't say anything in it, so you probably don't know I'm there. Scott asked, Did I get a silly envelope yet? Maybe, but if it went to the post office box, it could still be there because I haven't checked the post office box for a while. I need to get there, and it's probably going to be so full of stuff that that it will be a jam-packed post box and then probably an extra bag of stuff on a shelf out the back that couldn't be fit into the box. Can go to a pico. Okay. All right. Now, one of the subjects. So some comments in the chat have just made me think of one of the subjects that I do want to talk about, which is getting back to OXRS. So Ben asked, I like to ask if the Rack 32 can go to a pico, please. And there were some other things. Oh, Tabraze said nickname is Tabs. Okay, cool. I will call you Tabs. So, sorry, I will get back to that Rack 32 stuff in just a moment. I want to. So Crispian outside the box says we don't think we'll be able to make the barbecue next week. I just want to wrap up barbecue comments before getting on to other things. So next week, barbecue. During the week, or when was it? Maybe a week ago, I was talking to someone about making cookies, and it turned into a slight, as most things do, turned into a bit of a competitive conversation. So what happened is we have a bet going that I bet that I can make better cookies. She bets that she can make better cookies. So this coming barbecue, we are going to bring cookies and see who's a better. Which means, I thought I would throw the challenge out there. Why not make this barbecue a cookie barbecue? And if you want to bring along cookies, go for it. And we shall see who makes good cookies. I'm going to make just classic, big choc chip cookies, sort of similar to the ones you get in Subway, that sort of thing. I might try to make another type as well. And we shall see. A cookie showdown, yeah, with Cookie Monster, because I want to taste lots of different cookies. Stephen W. said, a cookie showdown. Oh, Jack said 3D printed cookies with a 3D cookie printer. Yes, we need a food printer. That would be a really cool project, I think, for the stream. Would be doing... So, we have already the SourceBot. Oh, the other thing is the SourceBot will probably be here. SourceBot was at the last barbecue. Hang on. I want to see if I can find... I very stupidly did not take any good photos of it when it was set up and running.
Said Cookie Monster yum yum.
Yeah, Cookie Monster yum yum. I didn't take any photos of it when it was up and running, but before setting up, for those of you who don't know what
Scott Miller said go all out.
What SourceBot is, pizza printer. Yes, now we're talking. Okay, so this is just inside the door of my factory. So just on the right is the big roller door, and just to the left of this photo is the barbecue. This was on the morning of the last barbecue. This is SourceBot, and what you do is you put your sausage and bread on the bed, on the print bed here, and then you hit one of the big buttons. So you press tomato for tomato sauce, mustard for mustard, and the
Imogen Ann said paint Bernie Boy blue again for cookie barbecue. Lol.
Bernie Boy blue again. Yeah, Bernie Boy is very red at the moment. So you press the thing and the peristaltic pumps pump out whichever of the condiments that you want, and it squirts it in a pattern. So there is the y-axis is to move the sausage underneath, and the x-axis moves horizontally to move the It's kind of an extruder. They're sauce and mustard extruders, so it dribbles the condiments on top of your food. So we already have XY here. You know, it would actually be a fairly simple modification to replace, instead of putting tomato sauce in this, what we could do is put pancake mix, and then it could dispense it and draw things out of pancakes. Wouldn't be really a big thing. Scott said, but can it be programmed to sign your name? Yes, it could be. Just a bit of G-code.
Austin's_creations said add your conveyor controller to it.
Yeah, we could have a conveyor that goes under. Yeah, anyway, I'm not going to be modifying this sauce bot because this actually isn't mine and it's not even my project. This was mostly done by Andrew, Pancake Legend, who is often in, which is appropriate. Pancake Legend is often in the chat, but I haven't seen him here today. This was done for the Connected Community Hackerspace in Hawthorne, and it's used at the Bunnings barbecues that are regularly run by the Hackerspace. So this is a food 3D printer in some ways, which is super cool. So I would love to do something like a pancake printer, and there are pancake printers around, in fact. So we are chasing a squirrel right now, but it's an interesting pancake printer. There was one a few years ago. Pancake bot, here it is. In fact, I think I've talked about pancake bot in the past. Yeah, this thing. Pancake bot, so it's got a heated bed underneath, and you can print different things with it. And cook them. So, and you can do this sort of coloration because the longer you cook pancake mix, the darker it goes, which means if you want dark lines, you lay out the dark lines and you leave them there for however long to start to cook, and then you fill in the other gaps with the color that you want to be a bit lighter, and then wait a little bit, and then you fill in other gaps with areas that you want to be lighter still. And you end up being able to print things with tone like this, which is pretty epic. There's someone's epic breakfast, except that it's got broccoli in there. That's ruined it. That is weird. So that's a combination of scrambled eggs, banana,
Scott Miller
broccoli.
said, talking about squirrels. Steve, Steph.
Yeah, I'll leave you wondering for a minute. There's bacon, so that is acceptable. Bacon and banana, and I don't get it. That is such a weird combination of food. Scenery, yes. Yeah. So it is a scene. So they've chosen the food to make the scene. The Tyrannosaurus is running along on the ground, which is the bacon, and mashy stuff and undergrowth and trees and things. So it makes a good picture, but as a combination of foods to eat, that's kind of weird. Broccoli and pancake. I'd like some broccoli pancake, please. What's going on with this? Oh, okay, so this is printing other stuff for making the shape of whatever is sitting under there. What is that? Is that green pancake mix? Maybe it is. It could be pancake mix with a little bit of food dye in it. So, anyway, food 3D printers. I think that could be a fun project. Crispian said not weird for an American. Maybe. Yes. Continuous pancake. Stephen W. said continuous pancake. Yeah, so what you could do is make it like one of those continuous 3D printers that has the belt feed on it. Like the one Naomi did a few years ago. So have a belt that goes through, and then you could just print stuff on it as it's moving along. Jack wishes it could be unseen. Yeah. Now, What was I talking about? That's right. All of this came about mentioning the barbecue. Arrgh. It looks like I'm sitting sideways, but I think that's just camera, like, hang on. See there, that looks like I'm straight. I'm actually sitting on kind of a twisted angle to achieve that. This is straight. My camera is in a bit of an odd position, or I'm turned oddly or something. Barbecue. So, that's right. As I was saying, cookies. That's how we got onto this. Yeah, maybe. Dispensing cookie dough would be hard because the dough is so thick. It would need to be very, very thin cookie dough. Pancake mix could be dispensed though. Yeah. Pancake printer. Okay. So, Luminator is here. Good morning, Luminator. Oh, and a few other people have arrived since I was saying hello. Iggy arrived. Yes, so Iggy said, I saw a comment from Iggy earlier. Where is it? At 8:07, took 27 HRA from Canberra. HRA. I don't understand what HRA stands is. Sorry, Iggy, but I appreciate that you're stuffed. Well, someone said you've got a pick and place to use. Yes, you have a P&P to use. Said making things. So that's true. Pick and place. What we could do is have a food printer that dispenses stuff and then places things on it. Like we could make patterns with fruit. I don't know. Put down choc chips in specific patterns. Who else has arrived since? Jack, Amanda, Tradie Trev, Making Things, Luminator, and Tim McMahon. Yes. Welcome everybody. Oh, HRS. I didn't even understand. Oh, okay, so 27 hours from Canberra. 27 hours of travel. 27 hours? Yeah, Making Things said hundreds and thousands. Amanda said cookie dough can be dispensed because that's how they mass make them. Yes. And Rob V says screw pump for cookie dough. Yeah, that's right. It would have to be a different type of dispenser mechanism. This is a peristaltic pump. Now, a peristaltic pump could potentially still work, but it would need to be on a bigger scale. The inner diameter of this tube is just way too small. Hang on, got to get focus back on here. Yeah, so this tube, this is basically like the air hose that you have on fish tanks. And it runs down through this peristaltic pump, and then that forces the material along the inside of the tube and ends up being dispensed there. You could do it, but with a bigger diameter tube and basically like a much bigger pump. You could run cookie dough through that, but more likely you would use something like a screw mechanism. Now, what's it called? Is it an Archimedes screw? There is a particular type of mechanism that is used for things like dispensing solder paste as well. Yes, here we go. It's something like this, or hydronomic screw. Images. Oh no, it's not quite like that. No, an Archimedes screw is typically for raising things. So it's used as a pump or a way to get liquid. Oh, okay, that was going down. Oh, this is using it as a generator. Someone, I am sure, cookie dough pressure feed. Oh, you're in Ottawa, Iggy. Auger, yes, an auger. But there is a specific term for when an auger is used. Yeah, and Wagon Load says they used to screw in old crank-style meat grinders. Exactly, that's exactly the sort of thing. It is used, auger pump, it is used in solder paste dispensers. I looked into this quite a while ago. Auger or Archimedes screw, and when I was looking at making solder paste dispensers to go on the pick and place machine, this is one of the ways that solder paste can be applied with a fairly high degree of accuracy, because the solder paste, as I understand it, is reasonably non-compressible, and so if you can drive it through some kind of a screw mechanism like this, which has a captive space, but you can basically extrude a very accurately controlled amount, and you can stop it when required, which is just as important, because you don't want the ooze coming out and having too much solder paste coming out because it's stopped. You would need a piston pump and a knife to cut the paste. Solder paste pump dispenser. Doing this search is going to find all the vacuum driven ones, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about one that uses a screw pump type thing. ResearchGate. Download scientific diagram, screw pump. Maybe that's all it is. Maybe it is an Archimedes screw, but I am sure that there was a particular name for that type of mechanism that is used for doing this. What is it? What is it? What about rollers on each side of a toothpaste tube, says Wagon Loads. Yeah, in some ways that's kind of like a peristaltic pump. One that moves. But it means that once once the tube is empty, you are you can't dispense anymore. You have to stop. Whereas with a pump design like this, it can be continuous, because what you can do is simply top up the canister. You can see up here the top of these tubes is open. They've got a hole cut in them. So as the level of the source or the whatever material you're dispensing gets low, it doesn't actually have any effect on the pump, because it's not relying on suction as such. It is physically grasping the material and sort of pulling it along. No, that's a bad description. Well, it kind of is relying on suction, because what it's doing is squeezing the tube and moving the squeeze point, which is then pulling the material in behind it. So anyway, the point is, what you can do is just dump more in the top. It doesn't matter. And so essentially it's like a continuous ink tank in an inkjet printer, where you want to be able to top up the tank and not interrupt the operation. So this can be in continuous operation and then just be continually topped up on the top. Yeah, Jordan says still requires suction to move it into the tube. Yeah. Scott says cookie dough isn't going to gravity feed.
Cookie dough isn't going to gravity feed to the pump.
Yeah. Scott said injection molding machines use a screw too. Yes. And Stephen says they do double duty with their screw to melt and pump. Yeah. Let's go back to here. I'm going to solder paste, screw pump. I'm going to change my search terms. Yeah, this is the type of thing where the paste comes in from the side and it enters into the thread in the middle, and it's just called an auger. Okay, so maybe that is the term that's used. So the paste comes in the side, it enters the thread of the auger, and this is used in all sorts of things, like putting coal into steam locomotives. They would dump the coal into the top of the auger. Let's see, steam locomotive coal auger, maybe? Mechanical stoker, yes, mechanical stoker. So if we look at mechanical stokers, I think they, come on, is that it? There's, seriously, no, come on. Train people are obsessive, and I can't believe that that is the extent of the mechanical stoker article on Wikipedia. This should be like enough to keep you reading for a day. All right, screw feed. Let's try this. Screw feed mechanism. And there is a very cool animation. Here we go. Centerless screw conveyor. Yep. Agriculture. Yeah. So anyway, that's how they work. The Olds elevator. Right. Rather than rotate a central screw blade, a stationary screw is contained within a rotating casing that scoops surrounding material into its base. Okay. I don't quite get my brain around how that works. But anyway. So, yeah. The lane said augers are used for moving grain. Andrew Brown says you are talking about positive displacement pumps. Okay, cool. I hadn't heard that specific term. In here it's actually called an Archimedes screw. Yes. So screw conveyor or auger conveyor. Right. Where was I? Okay, the point being, the point of all of this is barbecue next Sunday here at the Super Lab, starting at 12:30, for those of you who haven't been to one before. So if you are in Melbourne and you would like to come along to the barbecue next Sunday, I don't give out the address publicly, so yeah, it's a little bit different now. Now that this is... So I've been in this place for a while now. I've been in this factory for a little while. A year and a half at least, heading towards 2 years. And I still have the mindset of not disclosing the address because I've worked from home for years, and so I wouldn't share the address just because it was also my home address. But I'm a little bit worried about the idea of giving out the address publicly and details of an event, like saying it is at such and such an address on such and such a time there is a barbecue, and yeah. I want to maintain just some little amount of restriction on the information. But if you would like to come along, message me somehow and I will give you the address. Yeah. Oh, Wagon Load said, isn't solder paste too thick to gravity feed itself into an auger? Yeah, but the thing is that with an auger, if it is taking loose material, like moving, well, in this case, grape stems, or if it was moving grain or something like that, yes, you are relying on gravity for the additional material to... Okay, the difference is material that allows air to pass through it versus material that doesn't. If you have something like, if you're moving, say, corn or grain of some kind, of any kind, as you are pulling it into the auger, as it's going into the auger, it'll be leaving a cavity behind it which could be filled by air, because the air can permeate through the material, not very well if it's like packed corn or something, but there could be a cavity, and so you're relying on gravity to some extent to fill that cavity behind it. But if it is something that is more liquid, like solder paste, as you are pulling it into the auger, that is creating a negative pressure and it will pull. So you're not just relying on the gravity to have the solder paste go down into the drive mechanism. It is being pulled in a suction sort of way. Trady Trev says, I understand what you're saying. I've been playing with heaps of water jets on my new job. Oh, fun. Been playing with water jets. Like, are you talking about water jet cutters? Oh, message retracted. Okay. Maybe if Trady posts that again, we will continue that conversation. Jordan says, whenever we make a trip to Australia, my wife already knows we need to make sure to catch a barbecue. Yeah. You do, Jordan. You do. And KHT said, I love to come to the barbecue, but I'm on the wrong side of the country. Oh no. Well, if you're in Perth or Western Australia in general, I think that means you're on the left side of the country, not the wrong side of the country. Oh, Trady said, I understand what you're saying. I've been playing with heaps of water jets on my new job. Yeah, so water jets. You talking about like a high pressure water jet for cutting or for cleaning and spraying? Crispian says road trip. Yeah, road trip to Western Australia. I'd like to go to Western Australia. My dad's about to go to Western Australia sometime fairly soon. And I didn't say anything at the time when he told me he was going, but I was thinking, should I suggest going with him? I would really like to. Oh, Jack says it would be an almost 48-hour flight for me. Oh, that's a long way. Yeah. I want to travel more. I have not been... I can't remember the last time I was in an aeroplane. I think the last time I was in an aeroplane would have been 5 years ago, maybe. It's been a long time, a long, long time. Oh, Crispian says, say hi to your dad for me. I will. Yeah, he's doing well. He went to New Zealand just recently. He was back not long ago. Went bike riding in New Zealand. So, yeah, he's doing well. And where was I? Yes. So, it's so long since I have been on a plane. It's crazy. The very last flight I would have been on would have been on a flight from Hong Kong to Melbourne, I think. Yeah. Got off the plane, didn't realise that a little while later COVID would hit, the world would change, and travel would stop. And I just haven't been anywhere since. But that's the way life has been. Yeah, Tassie Bob says planes, not missing much to be honest. Yeah, not missing much with the planes. All the time wasted with going to the airport and going through all the security checks and waiting around at the boarding gate and sitting on the plane uncomfortably and getting off at the other end and waiting for your luggage and getting out of the airport. Yeah, not missing much there. That's not the bit that's the fun. It's the being somewhere else. Oh, Stephen says, you're missing all of the colds and flu that you get on travelling on planes. Oh, Wagon Load says my last comment. Where is Wagon Load's last comment? I've got to scroll back. Oh, okay. Wagon Load says, maybe you need something like a hydraulic pump. One side is push while the other side is pull. I wonder how hydraulic pump. Wonder what mechanical sort that converts mechanical into hydraulic energy. All right, show me some diagrams. Yeah, I think hydraulic pump. How is this working? So we've got a suction port, the pressure port, and we've got drive gears, mounting flange, drive shaft. That doesn't show me how it works at all. Not in the slightest. Oh, this is like a diaphragm type thing. Hydraulic piston pump. Okay. That looks pretty cool. For a cutaway thing. Okay, now back to the chat. Back to the chat. Valves would clog. Yeah. Oh, Scott says I used to regularly jump out at them. Yes. Out of planes. Yes. Got to do that too. I need to do that. Tassie Bob says planes and hotels not much fun. The destination itself is much more interesting. Yes, exactly. Dion asked, what about what they use for a cement pump? Oh, Wagon Load says, think of how steam engine pistons work. Yeah, they have valves as well. So from my limited understanding, a steam engine piston works in a very similar way to the piston in a petrol powered engine, where it has intake and exhaust valves for the steam pressure. What do they use for a cement pump? That is a very good question. So cement trucks that pump stuff out and then potentially pump it up very long hoses and then like on a movable arm so it can go onto a building site. Cement pump. How do cement pumps work? Are they auger style? Cement pump. Metering pumps. Screw. Pancake Legend. Yes. Pancake Legend is here. Pancake Legend is here. So, yes, just back to that for a second. Concrete pumps. What type of pump is best for concrete? In conclusion, concrete line pumps and boom pumps are both effective methods for delivering construction. Yeah, so the best concrete pump is a concrete pump. How useless is that? All right. And Pancake Legend said if they need to pump a great height, they have additives to make the concrete more fluid. Yeah. Now, a couple of weeks ago, when Andy and I were talking about this thing, Andy made the point that source is a non-Newtonian fluid. So it doesn't behave in the usual way that fluids work when they are compressed. So anyway, Jordan says the cement mixers are basically hollow augers. I don't know about the pumper trucks. Yeah, hollow augers, right. So that's the type that doesn't have the shaft down the middle. Trady said, for water jet, jetting lots of CAN bus here, so all the week's learning has been worthwhile. Nice. Imi tried to get... Oh, here we go. So the comment that didn't get read out was, I used to drive a concrete agitator, so this is from Crispy and Outside the Box. I used to drive a concrete agitator, cement truck, and delivered to them frequently. Yep. Pancake Legend said mustard equals non-Newtonian. Okay, so I'm not sure about the tomato sauce. Maybe tomato sauce acts as a Newtonian fluid and the mustard acts as a non-Newtonian fluid. I can't spell. Non-Newtonian fluid, here we go. A non-Newtonian fluid is a fluid that does not follow Newton's law of viscosity. Well, that's kind of in the name, isn't it? That is, it has variable viscosity dependent on stress. In particular, the viscosity of non-Newtonian fluids can change when subjected to force. Ketchup, for example, becomes runnier when shaken and is thus a non-Newtonian fluid. Yeah, and solder paste is also a non-Newtonian fluid, which is part of the reason that solder paste stencils work, which is really cool. So when they, Tim said, Shenzhen trip, I just got back. Awesome. Yes, I really want to go back to Shenzhen and see how much it's changed. It's so many years since I've been there. Wagon Loads asked, would applying a vibration to the paste tube cause it to be more fluid? Yeah, I think it would. You could probably even do it at very high frequency, like ultrasonic. So what you could do is have the fluid pass through, well, no, you'd need to do it at the point where it is being pumped, I guess. And Outside the Box says, why don't they take advantage of non-Newtonian technology in engine oils? I think they do, don't they? Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, so with solder paste, when it is put under pressure, Tim says I'm probably 15 minutes away. 15 minutes away from me. Non-Newtonian. I'm just gonna do a search for solder paste. Solder pastes are a very complex fluid of high viscosity. Yeah, okay. Their behavior when experiencing shear stresses is non-Newtonian, meaning that their viscosity is not constant as the shear stress varies. Yes. So, you can actually tell this, like, if you pay attention when you are dispensing solder paste, so solder paste stencil, what I mean is, for those of you who don't know, here's an example from SparkFun. Well, there's a picture of a solder paste stencil, which is a laser cut piece of stainless steel, and it's got all these little apertures in it, so when you scrape the solder paste across it with an applicator. Now this is an example of a bad solder paste job. So you can see here the solder paste is has all slumped, and you can see it's got like a ridge around the edge and then hollow in the middle, and it's bled out from the bottom. So that's a bad solder paste job. And zoom back out. Where's a good solder paste job? That one is not so good. It doesn't have very neat edges on there. And what I'm trying to do, here's a better one. Okay, so this is a decent solder paste job. I'm trying to find a photo of one. Now, who is it? There is someone on Twitter who regularly posts really, really nice solder paste macro photos. Solder paste. Here's one of Sion's videos talking about solder paste stenciling. Yeah, so anyway, the point is, if you pay attention as you are Pancake Legend said, we've explored pushing sprinkles through tubes at the hackerspace for reasons.
Unexpected Maker said Greg Deville.
Yes, it's Greg Deville. Thank you, Sion. Greg Deville, Twitter, because I am not searching for X because it is a stupid name. Okay, yeah, even his profile shot here is, like, his background is solder paste. So where's a photo? Somewhere down here will be some pictures of boards. It's ooh, nice macro photography there. Just inside to determine. Yeah, I do that all the time. So this comment from Greg was, often I find it easier to just look at the dye bond wires
Austin
inside
_
LEDs.
Creations said even the URL is still Twitter. Terrible rebranding attempt.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. How the hell are you meant to search for X? Twitter is just like, it's an SEO dream. But X is an SEO nightmare. Yeah, so when I'm aligning, if I'm putting LEDs down by hand under a microscope, I don't bother looking at the markings. I just look at the bond wire, because the bond wire is on the anode side, and so I always know. And typically, unless you're doing something like low-driven LEDs, then typically what will happen is that you'll have the high side go through a current-limiting resistor and then into the anode of the LED, and then the cathode of the LED goes to ground, which is usually the ground plane on the top of the PCB. So you don't even have to care, like, you don't need to look at a component overlay or anything. If you're looking at a location to put down an LED on a PCB, all you do is you make the bond wire point away from the ground plane, and you know you're good most of the time. Macro photography. Ooh, okay. This I'm gonna save this thread for later, because macro photography using a Canon 6D, blah, yeah. I want to, ooh, depth of field. Look at this. Yeah, focus stacking. Okay, I have tried focus stacking in the past and had poor success with it. I use a light tent, and my cameras, the Panasonic Lumix cameras, have focus stacking built in. So for those of you who don't know, the problem with taking macro photography is that you end up with a very short focal length. So this photo, for example, which looks really cool, this is an amazing photo, but you can see that there is a band in the middle here where the picture is in focus. And beyond that, so things that are further away and things that are closer are out of focus. And you have this very narrow window. So there are a few ways that you can improve the situation. One is to bring in lots and lots of light and then step the aperture down to be really small so it becomes almost a pinhole. And then that increases your depth of field. But there are limits to what you can do with that. So being able to get a photo of this scene so that the whole thing is in focus is actually really hard, even though what we're talking about here, so say the front of this picture, like down at the front of the frame here, to the back of the frame here, this is probably about 15 millimeters. It's, you know, that sort of size. Look at this. This module on here, this would be 0.1 inch pitch. So this is 2.54 millimeters. So that's 2.54, 7.62, etc. Up to, so this is like 15 millimeters from here to here. It's probably, say, 20 millimeters from front to back of that entire picture, and yet only a little portion in the middle is in focus. So the way focus stacking works is your camera focuses at one extreme, so say right at the front or right at the back, and it takes a picture, and then it moves its focus and takes another picture, moves its focus, takes another picture. So you end up with a whole series of photos at different focal points, and none of them will be in focus through the entire range of the picture, but they will all have different parts of the picture in focus. And then software in the camera takes those and it collapses them, and it uses the in focus parts out of each picture and stitches them together to build a photo like this. So this is the same scene as the previous one, but probably with focus stacking. And so the end result is you end up with this picture that is a composite of all of the sub pictures that were taken in order to achieve it. You can see there's a bit of blurring along the top here still. It's not 100% perfect, but it looks really, really good. So this is very cool. Anyway, I'm going to save this thread. Oh, to stack and edit the pictures, I use Helicon Focus and Affinity Photo. Affinity Photo already has a built-in focus stack feature. Yeah. All right, so when you do focus stacking in the camera, what you can do is, so this is the case in the Panasonic cameras at least, what you can do is have it output. It saves the individual frames that it used and saves the composite, the stack. But one thing I found with the Panasonic cameras, at least, maybe it's me because I don't know how to drive them, I've never been able to get focus stacking to work really reliably. It's always ends up coming out looking a bit strange. And maybe the trick here, which is what Tobias seems to be talking about down here, is using Helicon Focus and Affinity Photo. I've never heard of those. My guess is they're probably Windows programs, which would be unfortunate. Yeah, so maybe what I need to do is try taking the raw images and doing the focus stacking outside of the camera, not relying on the camera's internal image processor. That's right. The whole point of coming along to Greg's thing here was to find pictures of good solder paste application. Yeah, that one's okay, but you can't really see it that clearly. Oh, that one is that is very small, whatever that part is. Yeah, this tiny little BGA, 16-pin BGA it looks like, of some kind. Got to find a really good picture of Greg's solder paste application, because there are, yeah, he's posted some incredible ones where the edge is really cool, really square. No, I'm sure I've seen better. Oh, look at this. Add some bodge wires. Greg's just showing off here. Check this out. Look at this. What are these? Like 0201 parts? Maybe 0402? Don't know. Could be 0201s. With some bodge wires. Undernet. What? Oh, thank you, Undernet, for the super chat. I'm like a father figure. Okay. Thank you, I suppose. Oh, Pancake says Affinity is on Mac too. I'm a big fan of the Affinity suite. Right. Oh, Scott says, old days of non-LED lighting, enough light to focus that might have reflowed it. Yeah, yeah, with the old studio lights, they would just throw out masses of infrared. Papa John. Papa John's pizza.
Scott Miller said Papa John.
Yeah. But yeah, this is just showing off. Look at this. This is epic work. Someone had fun under a microscope then. Time to see some pixels flow. Now, I'm still scrolling looking for, oh, this'll do. I think this'll do. Yeah, look at this. Okay, the whole point of this was to show you very nice solder paste application. And this is textbook. This is so nice. Look at the structure of the stack of solder paste there. Because it's almost square on, you can't really see a lot of the depth of this, but these will be nearly vertical sided little stacks of solder paste, which is just beautiful. Yeah, look at this. That is a work of art with these narrow apertures, and you can see that they're sitting up absolutely perfectly. And look, yeah, so it was done on a panel. That is just beautiful. All right, I'm going to leave that on the screen for a minute. So all of this is to help me illustrate what I was talking about with solder paste being a non-Newtonian fluid. When you apply pressure to it, it flows. When you release the pressure, it stops flowing. And by flow, what I mean is its viscosity decreases as you apply pressure, and that is one of and that is, oh yeah, so Crispian says we shared a birthday. Who was it? Maybe he's a time traveler. Yeah. Yes, so outside the box is Crispian. Yes, our birthdays are 1 day off, like same year, 1 day off. And in fact, I think that we were probably born within the same day effectively, because I was born, my birthday is 1 day, which way around does it go? 1 day after? It is, before, yeah, my birthday is 1 day after, but I was born in London. Outside the box was born here in Melbourne, and I think it was in Melbourne, certainly in Australia. And because of the time zone difference, I think our days actually overlapped. If I did the conversion of what day it was here in Australia on the day I was born in London, I would, we would be the same age, I believe. Something like that. Oh, Crispian says that the time zones don't help. You should be using UTC time for your birthdays. That's a good point. Well, actually, because I was born in London, it effectively is UTC, I believe. GMT. I was born not all that far from Greenwich. Yeah, time and date Austin is posting. So yes, I was born in at a 0 offset time zone. You could also use the Linux time code. Says Stephen W. Yeah, use Unix time. Anyway, the point of this is, one thing that I'd notice when I am using the squeegee, like the stainless steel squeegee to wipe solder paste, one of the tricks to getting it to work is to apply the right amount of pressure. So as you're, I'm going to go back to here. So you can see, well, that angle is okay, but I would put just slightly more angle on that, I think. Where's a picture of a solder paste? Well, okay. So this is the stencil, and then there is the squeegee. So when people say squeegee, they typically think of something soft like rubber, but the squeegees that are used for solder paste dispensing are typically steel as well. They're stainless steel. It's like a very thin stainless steel blade that gets scraped horizontally across the top of the stencil, and the squeegee angle here is quite critical, because as you are applying downward pressure on this blade and sliding it to the right, what you're doing is compressing the solder paste, and that compression forces, well, it does two things. Firstly, obviously, it moves the solder paste, so it pushes the solder paste down through the holes in the stencil, and they adhere to the exposed surface of the PCB that's underneath it. However, this is the funky thing. Applying that downward pressure also compresses the solder paste, which can drive it into its non-Newtonian state. And as that thing was talking about before, where is it here? It said, their behavior when experiencing shear stresses is non-Newtonian, meaning that their viscosity is not constant as the shear stress varies. And what happens is they become more fluid under pressure, which is very, very odd. So if you think about compressing something, like say you take a gas and you compress it to make it a liquid, like LPG, liquid petroleum gas, which is, what is that name? Isn't that an oxymoron? It's a liquid gas. Is that even what LPG stands for? I think it is. So anyway, maybe it means gas into like gasoline. I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying. So anyway, the point is, when things are compressed, they typically become like stiffer or less prone to moving. But non-Newtonian fluids like this, when liquid petroleum gas, yeah. When you apply that force to it, it is applying that shear stress, which effectively breaks it. It's like it breaks layers between in the material. And
system notification. 1 hour remaining.
Graham clarified. It's not liquid petroleum gas, it's liquefied petroleum gas. Yeah, so it's gas that's been liquefied. That is an accurate description. It's not a liquid gas. So and it flows. So how long does it take me to get to the point? I don't know. And way too long. My point is, when you are applying that force to the squeegee, what you are doing is making the solder paste more liquid and it flows. So what happens is, if you don't apply sufficient force, you do not get the non-Newtonian effect, and it's just like
Scott Miller
pushing.
said squirrel, 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 squirrel.
Yeah, Scott, squirrels all the way down. Effectively, it's like just pushing a paste around, and it will go where you push it, but there's nothing really special about it. But the way to get the incredible effects, like what Greg has achieved here, is by applying the right amount of force or pressure, so that as the solder paste is being compressed, it flows. It becomes more liquid. It flows into the apertures, and then as the pressure is released, it becomes less liquid, and then it more solid, and it then holds its shape. So as you lift the solder stencil off, you are left behind with these little stacks of solder that can stand up by themselves. They've got nearly vertical sides. So these are like little piles of solder paste. They don't slump down, because the release of the pressure means that it's like they almost freeze in place, and they will hold that vertical sided structure and look like this, which is amazing. That is so good. This is like, anyone that's applied solder paste or a stencil, this is the dream. This is what you want to achieve. Yes, Jack said, I just remember this all started with cookies. And Jordan says, I think we're still on squirrels off of cookies for the barbecue. We are. Wagon Loads asked, why can't you put solder paste in a 3D printer? And Stephen says, solder paste is just a very high temperature cookie dough. Well, the problem is how to dispense it. And so obviously it couldn't go into a regular 3D printer, because normal 3D printers use a gear drive mechanism where they have two gears that compress the filament. So the filament is like regular solder, but not like solder paste. So what you need is some way of dispensing the semi-fluid of the solder paste. Amanda says, let's see, is it going to say?
Amanda Thompson said, now I can get John Farnham. Pressure Down song out of my head.
Pressure Down. No, I'm not going to get John Farnham stuck in my head. Why did you do that to me, Amanda? Yeah, so Lane says you compress many gases at liquefied. Yep. Now, what's interesting, I just noticed about this, is that there is no ground plane on the top of this PCB. I used to do this sometimes as well, like I would design boards and not put a ground plane on top. But these days, unless there is a very specific reason, I always leave a ground plane on the outer surface of the PCB. For reasons that I have talked about in previous live streams. But I hadn't even noticed, but this one, you can actually tell, you can see the thickness of the copper that's on the PCB. If, look at this, you can see that there's like the solder mask that's on bare fiberglass right there where my cursor is. And then it comes up over the copper and then back down again. And you can see that there is like a radius where the solder mask meets the copper and where the copper is bonded to the PCB. So for some reason, assuming that this is his design, Greg has chosen not to put a ground plane on the top side of the PCB here. Yeah, oh, you can see here, look, there's a USB socket. I've got no idea what these things are. at a crazy guess, that will be something like a bridge. Why would there be a bridge rectifier there? That was my first thing, is this is a bridge rectifier, but no, that's probably something else. That will be a memory chip right there. So this thing here, that'll be like a flash memory chip. You can see that it's got 4 pads on this side, 4 pads on this side, and a big thermal pad underneath. That is the really common sort of format. So flash memory runs hot, like surprisingly hot. So they often have these really big thermal pads underneath. And that'll be a microcontroller of some kind on the right. So the Lane, I think it was, asked about RP2040s earlier, and Rack 32s. I will get back to that, because looking at this just reminded me of RP2040s. That could even be an RP2040. I can't remember how many pins does an RP2040 have. What's this? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 14 pins on a side. That could be an RP2040. So that's 56 pins total. Could be. What else have we got over here? Don't know what that is. Just looking for a crystal. Can't see an obvious crystal footprint here. That looks like, I think, a couple of big capacitors, maybe, not a crystal. There are a couple of interesting footprints here. These look like dual transistor footprints, maybe, something like that. Like pairs of transistors in a 6-pin package. And apart from that, yeah, USB-C. And a whole bunch of, yeah, look, there are some more of these interesting little footprints here. There's this bit here, there's this bit here, there's another one up here. Yeah, anyway, I like looking at what other people have done. It's always educational. Yeah, you can learn so much from other people's designs, particularly when you're looking at the work of people like Greg, who just do incredible things. Crystal is lower left of MCU, says Scott. Yeah, there were 4 footprints in 4 pads. So this right here, that is what I thought might have been the crystal. And it could be, yeah, that is quite likely. What's that? That will be a ground, I guess. So there is a via just there. There is this big fat track that goes around here. So that's probably I don't know what that would be. Could be a cap. That could be power rail. That might be 3.3 volts. That could be ground. And that would be ground. Oh yeah, and that would be ground. So these opposite pads on the crystal, they'd be the ground pads of the crystal. And there's a via there that goes down to a ground plane, I guess. And then these 2 pins here look like the pins that come to the crystal. Yeah. And then over here, you can see there's a trace that comes around to here, and that goes to ground as well. So that will be, these will be the loading caps off the crystal. Yes. So you are absolutely right. Scott, you are absolutely right. This is a crystal. So ground, and then crystal connection, and then these 2 are the bias capacitors on the, like the load capacitors on the crystal. So both going to ground, one going to one pad on the crystal, the other one going to the other pad on the crystal. Nice. Pad's upper left edge looks like a crystal. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Anyway, what was I talking about? All of this came about talking about cookies. So we're still talking about the barbecue, aren't we? Still talking about the barbecue. And next to GSD. Oh, okay, next to GSD. You mean this big thing here? Yeah, that could be. I don't know what that is. And if it was a crystal, why is it that big? Not those ones. This, I don't know what that thing is. I am at a loss. So, yeah. Oh, same footprint is on the USB data lines. Could be ESD protections. Yeah. So these could be ESD. Yes, that's right. This, you can see the loop around here. This, and then there's a loop around here. So because this is USB-C, it's reversible. It's got 4 pins with 2 signals. And the signals are doubled up so that it works whichever way you plug it in. And so this pin and this pin are joined together, and that pin are joined together, and then they come out through to here. So yeah, this part right here is definitely ESD protection. I would be pretty confident about that, because this is one of the data pins, this is the other data pin, and this is the ground connection that goes through to a wire, and this is the ground connection that goes through to a wire, and then follows on from here. The output side of that ESD protection would go through to, these would be a couple of resistors probably. But anyway, what am I doing analyzing Greg's circuit? Bottom 2 pads of large GSD device are shorted, so a reset or a push button. Oh, of course it is. Thanks to Braze. Yes. In retrospect, it's obvious. This is a button. Yeah, so these two linked together and those two going to ground is my guess. That looks like the ground side of that. Yeah, so this would be a 5K1 resistor. That would be the resistor to enable power mode from whatever device this is plugged into, and it goes from that CC line, so the charge, like the charge control line, 5.1K resistor placed right there, goes to ground. So this is ground, and that'll be a button. Yeah. Oh, Scott says not an RP2040. Crystal is connected to opposite side of chip. Yeah. Okay, so it's not an RP2040. It's probably some variant of an ESP or something. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Could be like an S3, an ESP32 S3, perhaps. So, you know, if we just looked at the looked at Greg's post, we could it'd probably just tell us what it is. But it is also kind of fun figuring this stuff out, reverse engineering it. Like looking at just a bare PCB. So we've got no parts here to look at. All we have is footprints and traces. And just trying to figure out what's going on with these footprints and traces. This looks suspiciously like an antenna down here, like a Wi-Fi antenna. So my guess is that this part down here is, so this will be like the LNA output. So the
Scott Miller said reading the post would be boring.
Yeah, that's right. So this pin here, my guess is that this is like a low noise amplifier output. So it's the antenna connection coming off the chip, and then it's going through this tuning circuit. So there would be one part across between these pads, and this will be a ground, I guess. One part across between these pads, another one across between these pads. So this will be an RC network, which is a tuning network. And then the antenna will be on here.
System notification, 45 minutes remaining.
45 minutes left to talk about 3D printing food. Yeah, so that'll be an antenna. And with the tuning network there coming off here. As for what type of antenna it is, oh, you can't see my cursor pointing at anything? I need a bigger cursor. Let's tank circuit 23 caps and an inductor for low pass to remove HF noise. Yeah, system settings. I wonder if I can do a cursor, highlight color, cursor size, which can, pointer size. Let's see, can I change pointer size? Display contrast, pointer size, normal, large. Oh yeah, look at this. Okay, now I have a large pointer. Don't make anything of that. Do not make anything of that. So it is now an enhanced pointer. Yeah, so antenna on there, and there are the parts for the RC network for the filter. Huge. Yes. Yeah, I knew that would lead to comments. Okay. What was I talking about? Oh, interesting. Okay, so one interesting thing here. This is an area where, this is another thing where it is good to learn from other people. You can see here that the solder paste has slumped in the middle of this pad. Well, not quite the middle, it's actually offset towards the central point, as in towards the center of the connector, and it's slumped here. That is because there is actually a slot under this, the solder paste, and there's a slot here, and there's a slot here. These are for the mounting points for the USB-C connector. So this is, there's a term for it. What is it? Paste in hole or paste in slot or something construction, because what you need to be able to do is apply solder paste to the pins that go into those holes. So solder paste obviously is normally used for surface mount, where you've got a flat contact and then you have another flat pin or pad that sits on top of it with the solder paste in between the two. So you've got two surfaces that are mating. But in this case, there is a hole under this that a pin goes into, and you also need to be able to solder that. So how do you get sufficient solder paste when there's nothing to put the solder paste on? And it looks like what Greg has done here, which is very clever, is done an oversized aperture for the solder paste, and it will be sucked in and adhere to the pin. This is cool. Maybe this is one of those things that everybody goes, yeah, obviously this is how it's done. But I don't think I've ever seen this before. I don't remember seeing this before. So the actual pad that this is attached to will be not much bigger than the slot. So if you can see where my cursor is, it'll be like a rounded rectangle, approximately half the area that you can see where the solder paste is. There will be just the slot, and there will be a little copper area around that slot, but it won't come all the way out to here. At least I assume it doesn't. I don't think it does. So this extra solder paste that is hanging out the side here, this extra solder paste that's hanging out the side, this is probably just sitting on silkscreen. It's not sitting on copper. And then as this goes through reflow, the metal pad here, so the pad that comes down, will heat up, obviously, and this solder paste will melt, and surface tension will make it pull together and clump. So it will all end up adhering in and around the pin where it's connected to the pad. But the clever thing is that by making the aperture here in the stencil oversized, it's put down extra solder paste, which is sitting here right beside the location where it's actually needed, and then it will be sucked into the joint during reflow. That is very clever. I like that. Right now I'm pondering changing the footprint on my USB-C connectors to try to pull off that same trick. Yes. Ooh, I just got a I just got a message from Tinker with a screenshot. Is that something I should look at now, Tinker? Hang on, I'm going to take you off that because I'm going to open Discord because I don't actually know what is going to appear. I've done this to myself so many times. I've had the stream going and I've opened Discord or Messenger or something and it's revealed all the chats and things that I had open. So I am slowly learning. Okay, it's doing its downloading update 1 of 1, and then once that's finished it'll say downloading update 1 of 5. Oh, hang on. I need liquid refreshment. Just give me a second. Oh, that's better. Right. Where were we? Ah, Scott said, look in your Discord DMs for a good footprint. Yes, I am still waiting for Discord to open. Oh, downloading update 5 of 6. Starting Discord. I'm still waiting for Discord to open. Okay. It is getting there. All right. Tinker has sent me. Yes, nice. Okay. So, well, the funny thing is, so I don't yet have Discord visible. The funny thing is that if I had opened Discord, what would have been shown is a photo of something that Tinker has posted to me with my address on the front. And I would have been doxing myself. Although, luckily, it's only the PO Box address. But I'm going to click on Open in Browser. Here we go. Look at this. Yeah. Nice. Nice. So, Tinker, this is an interesting one. And it's also got this big pad in the middle, which is a through hole. So that looks like a plated through hole, which means that you would be able to solder from the bottom of the PCB onto the bottom of the connector and make it super strong. That would never ever rip off the PCB. Right. Oh, yes. Stephen said, if you want us to see it, you need to change scene. Thank you. Yeah, I really do need to figure out a way of doing, allowing certain select people in the chat, like give a web interface where people can change my camera view. Or I need a producer or someone to sit here and drive the stuff. Yeah, so this is the footprint. Now, there are two really interesting things here. The first is this. So you can see here the footprint extends off the side, and that is where the extra solder paste would sit, so that it ends up being sucked into the joint by surface tension and wicked in around the pin. So that is the extra stuff that you can see here. So the extra solder paste that is just hanging out there on the side of the connection. And you can also see very clearly here that the copper is just this annular ring that goes around the pin. So that is where all of the solder will end up. It'll be wicked into this joint, but the spare solder paste sits out here ready to be sucked into the joint. That is really cool. So that alone is enough of a, oh, I need to start doing that, that really got my attention. But the other thing is, look at S1 in the middle here. So this is a plated through hole, and you can see that it's got a big copper area exposed here. when the USB socket is sitting on top of this footprint, it'll be sitting on this big through hole thing, which means that it will get soldered to the bottom of the housing of the USB socket will be soldered onto the PCB. And there are a couple of things here. One is because if this was just a pad, so I've seen this before, I've actually done this before. I've done USB-C footprints with a couple of surface mount pads here. The thing is that pads can still be ripped off the PCB unless you put a wire or something through it to mechanically adhere it to the boards. And oh, Scott says the 2 locate holes are also plated and connected to V-bus. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So yeah, if you just put surface mount pads under here, yes, it will bond the connector to the surface mount pads, but then the pads themselves can be ripped off the PCB. So one thing that I have done in the past is have surface mount pads under the connector and then put wires through the surface mount pads, which then sort of stitches it mechanically. But this is a really interesting approach. So this is a large through hole with a pad around it, which means that as it goes through reflow, it will bond to the PCB. It will also wick around the edges of that hole, and the through hole will be very strongly adhered to the board, so it would be very, very hard to rip off. And if you had to, you could turn the board over and use a soldering iron, and you could solder onto the bottom of the thing there, like you've got access through that hole. So this is super cool. Yeah. Thank you very much for showing me that. Yeah. Thank you, Scott. What am I doing? Oh yeah, so there was the so Scott said, I mentioned this one before, the 2 locate holes are also plated and connected to V-bus. So the locate holes, I guess these 2, the ones towards the back. And Scott also said makes it a lot easier to route V-bus. Yeah, V-bus is annoying. Well, actually no, they'd all need to be connected to V-bus. But hang on. Oh, the plated. Oh, no, sorry. Scrap everything I just said. I totally misunderstood there. No, these are ground. They have to be ground because these go to the body of the connector. I don't know why I thought otherwise for a moment. No, these 2 holes here are plated and connected to V-bus. Yes. Now, the bottom of the connector has 2 little plastic pins that stick down, and they're used for mechanical location. They don't hold it on the board, they just help to align it in the correct place. And normally having those holes through there is really annoying because it gets right where you want to run the traces. So these outer pads, A1 and A12, are ground. These slightly inner pads, A4 and A9, these are V-bus. So this is the 5 volts that comes from the host computer. But look, if you try to route in from here, you've got this hole in the way, which is really annoying. So typically what you have to do is bring it forward and then drop a wire down and then run a trace underneath and then another wire coming back up to join it here. That's like the common way of routing, because you need to join A9 and A4. They have to be joined together, and you can't do that in either direction easily without getting in the way of other things, because you also have to route out these tracks. Or is it this one? I think it's this one here and this one here. This is all going from memory. Because they are the charge control
System notification.
pins.
30 minutes remaining.
So if you run V-bus around the front, you're blocking all the data lines. If you run V-bus around the back, you are blocking the charge control pin tracks. So it's all just painful and annoying routing USB-C connectors. But if these are plated through holes, so the mechanical alignments, so on my current footprint, these are just holes. There's nothing else there. They're not plated. They're just locator holes. But if they are plated through holes, you can then route from A9 to that hole and then use that effectively as a via, put a trace along the bottom, bringing it to this one. Yeah, this is nice. I'm learning so much today. This is cool. Scott says, I usually do a V-bus fill on the top side in that area. Okay, groovy. Yeah. Oh, Wagon Load says, why can't you put a LiPo spot welding straps around the USB-C and through the mounting holes? You don't need to, well, technically you could, but that would be very, very fiddly, and it would be unnecessary because the tabs, these tabs that go down through these holes are part of the enclosure, like the actual body of the connector. They're not separate. They are physically stamped out of the same piece of steel. That it's just the way it's bent means that those tabs stick out and then come down through the PCB. So with these pins soldered through the PCB all the way through to the far side, this is mechanically incredibly strong. And particularly when the center of the body is soldered down, yeah, that connector is not going anywhere. If you tried to rip that connector off, I think what you would do is you would break the USB cable before you broke that connector. That is, yeah, that is cool. Ooh, okay. And Scott said there are 2 photos of an older version of that footprint in use in your DMs. All right, let me jump back down to here. Okay. Oh, cool. All right, slightly older version. So I'm just going to open this in the browser. So there's that one, and this one. Yeah, you can see from the bottom. Look how big this cursor is. So you can see there is the through hole, which is under the front of the connector. So that would be very strongly bonding it. And you can see here the other locations where the pins come through. But it looks like these have got bigger pads that come out wider. My guess is that the new version of this just does not come out quite that wide. Yeah. So there is a very large fillet coming out from the side of the connector there. And a fillet there as well. And then the charge control, you can see just there, and on the other side these will be, my guess is 5.1k resistors going through to the charge control pins. And then we've got V-bus coming out here, joining across. Oh, that's interesting. So in this case, the data lines drop with vias through the board somewhere, and the main power is routed on the top of the PCB. The new...
Scott Miller said weak connector mounts are bad. MMMMKAY.
Okay. Yep. Where is the chat? Where is the chat? Oh yeah, Scott says weak connector mounts are bad. Yes. Oh, Crispian said pain in the butt if you ended up needing to replace it then. Probably easier to replace the entire board. Hot air and stuff can do wonders. Like if you set, well, you'd have trouble sitting this on a hot plate because of this. But what you could do is use a hot plate with a little block of aluminium so that you're heating up to just adjacent to these pads. You couldn't sit this directly on the hot plate properly because the solder underneath is going to hold the PCB up off it, and it'll make a bit of a mess. So what you would do is targeted direct heating on the bottom. On my... Oh, which reminds me, I finally ordered one of those MHP50 hot plates. So after seeing Natalie the Nerd posting about it, yes. So I've been using a little DIY hot plate using a heating element for a while now, and it's fantastic. But it's a rough contraption with mains on my bench, and it's not very convenient because it's got a heavy mains cable going to it, which makes it quite hard. Like, it doesn't want to stay located on the bench, and I just sit it on two pieces of wood so that it doesn't burn the bench. It's all very crude. What it did was show me the benefits of one of the mini hot plates. So I ended up finally, after so Natalie the Nerd posted some pictures of some stuff being done on an MHP50, and I ended up ordering one a couple of weeks ago, and I got a notification that it is in the country. So hopefully I will have my MHP50 hot plate soon. But anyway, the point is, what I've done on my existing hot plate is I've got some little bits of aluminium that I cut, and I can arrange them. Because one of the problems is trying to put a PCB on a hot plate when the bottom face of the PCB is not totally flat. When you've got things like solder like this coming through, or you might have pins from connectors coming through, there are all sorts of times where you want to be able to put a board on a hot plate and you can't because it won't sit flat on it. So what I've got is these little pieces of aluminium that I put on the hot plate, and I can rearrange them so they get arranged into whatever shape is useful, and then sit the PCB on top of it. They're, I think, 3mm aluminium, maybe 4, yeah, maybe 3mm. And so you can arrange it so that they make contact flat with the bottom of the PCB and avoid pins and things that are sticking down. So in this case, what I would do is probably put a block of aluminium directly under this part of the PCB so that it comes up immediately adjacent to this, or maybe a piece on each side, and that would get heat into the ground plane. So the big thing with getting this connector off is going to be heating the ground plane of the PCB, because that's where all of the thermal mass is. The body of the connector is connected to the ground plane, and it is all of this large copper area on the bottom and probably on the top of the PCB as well. So by putting this on a hot plate with metal around the connector, you could heat up this ground plane fairly effectively, and then it shouldn't take all that much, like a touch of hot air from above, and that combination, and I reckon you could replace this connector. Yeah. Ooh. Right. Yeah, cool. Thanks for showing me that, Scott. That is very cool. And that footprint, this one here, that is a pretty epic footprint. I really like that. I'm going to, I think I'm going to edit my USB-C footprint to add those two features. I'm going to add the oversized apertures on the mounting holes. Well, 3 features, 3 things I need to do. First, oversized apertures on the mounting holes so that it adds solder paste that gets sucked into the joint. Then add a large through hole on the bottom so that it adheres the base of the connector onto the PCB very effectively. And third, I'm going to plate these holes so that I can route VCC from A4 straight into that mounting hole, and then run a trace between those two. So they effectively become very large vias, which is ideal. Oh, Scott says, I have that footprint on GitHub. Awesome. Okay, in that case, I might just steal your footprint. So just looking at the visual style of this, I am 99% sure this is a KiCad footprint. So that's very cool. Or put it, Keith says, or put it in the microwave and let it drop off. Is that too weird? Wouldn't you have lots of sparks and bangs and crackles and pops? I think that would be really bad. I've never tried to put a PCB in the microwave, but I guess it wouldn't end well at all. The other thing is that heating things in microwaves is not very even. It relies on, because the wavelength, how does it work? Yeah, if you have something in a microwave that's stationary, so it's not on the rotating platter, it heats in bands just because of the standing wave effect of the microwave. So the standing waves are going through specific locations within the oven. So that's the reason that microwave ovens have the rotating carousel. It's so that the thing that you put in there will be moved through the waves as it passes. A few centimeter wavelength, says Crispian. Yes, that's right. So it's a few centimeters. So if you link in your DM, says Scott. Thank you, Scott. Let's see. Oh, and is it public? Do you mind if I... Oh, here we go. I am going to click on this. Visit site. Blink. This is public, so hopefully Scott doesn't mind this. It's okay if I post this URL. Tinker's custom footprints, including SMT USB-C with mechanic. Thank you, Scott. I'm putting the link in with an explanation just so that people can find it in future. Crispian says, did someone mention pizza? Tabrez said, use cheese slices on the floor of the microwave chamber to see the heating pattern. Yeah. I've heard of people doing it with chocolate as well. So if you put a block of chocolate in the microwave and set it without the rotating platter in the bottom, set it just in the base of the microwave, and you run it for a little bit, you'll see bands, you'll get bands of melted chocolate. I've never actually done that. I probably should one day. Scott says, realized after sending it that's the multi-device version, but I'll add the regular one to it. Interesting. Jack's Tech said, fun fact, some soldering irons actually use microwaves to heat themselves. Really? How? I don't understand. UPDI, TinySJ, USB-C, USB-AC. All right. So look at that. Look at that. Yeah, so the footprint is so it's the multi, or an XT30, that is like a super footprint. So you can do a USB-A connector, a USB-C connector, or an XT30 connector, which gives you all the options for power. Right. That is kind of crazy, crazy awesome. So you can see here the render of an XT30 connector on that spot. So I suppose the downside of this, I mean, this is super clever, doing this multi-footprint, and there's the USB-C connector. The downside of doing this is that if you did just want the USB-C connector, then you've got all of this extra board space taken up by support for the other versions that you don't want, which is what Tinker was getting at a moment ago about putting up the version that is just the
System notification, 15 minutes remaining.
USB-C. Ooh, solder jumpers that actually fit. Stock TinySJ. You got some good stuff here, Tinker. Yeah. Okay. That is a yeah, very useful repo. So for people that do board design using KiCad, check out that URL, that GitHub repo. All right. Oh, outside the box said, spread butter on bread to see it, then it is easier to clean up after. Yeah. All right, so Tabraze and Undernet both said Metcal irons use microwaves to heat themselves. Oh, and JackSec said it as well. Undernet System said patented process. Wagon loads. Can you put the PCB inside a microwave popcorn bag? Maybe. Oh yeah, Tabraze said Curie pointed the tips control temperature. You need to change tips to change temperature. Yeah, I know of the Curie point tips. I didn't know that was related to microwave heating. That is interesting. Wagon loads.
Outside the box said Speeduino was mentioned before the stream. Could you give a quick rundown of where that project got to?
Ah, okay. Speeduino. Well, at the moment it hasn't gotten anywhere since the last time. So we still have the Drop Bear pre-production unit here. So Drop Bear is... hang on, there was... Before I get into this subject... No, okay, I will just wrap this up because there isn't anything to tell. The point is... Speeduino is an open source ECU project for cars, and the designs are all published, source code is public and open source. Drop Bear is the name of the reference design of that ECU, and my son Tom bought a Drop Bear a few weeks ago. We got a pre-production test unit, because it hasn't actually been released yet. Like the new version of the Drop Bear hasn't been released yet. And I have it sitting in a box just nearby. Actually, just out, I know where it is. It's on a shelf just out in the factory area. But we haven't got to the point of actually hooking things up and ripping out his old ECU and doing the conversion. So right now there is no more to tell on that. But it is definitely going to be an interesting subject to talk about in future. Now, the... Tabraze said, technically Metcal uses RF, not sure if the frequency is microwave. Yeah, that's what I thought. So, Metcal uses RF heating, yep, with the Curie point tips. Yes, that's right. So, I didn't know about it being microwave. Wagon Loads asked, how do you do multi-footprints without errors? You probably don't. You probably just have to accept the errors. Outside the box says Honda and Toyota ECUs are very similar, and I'm interested in following closely. Yeah, cool. And now the Speeduino should run on just about anything. One of the interesting things about it is that it is so extensible. It gets used for all sorts of ridiculous things. Like, it gets used for radial aircraft engines, and I think it's been run on like V12s and 5-cylinder engines. Like, I think Volvo make 5-cylinder engines. It's been used on 3-cylinder engines, 5-cylinder engines. It does different patterns on 8-cylinder engines. So like I think you can pair cylinders versus have them separate. Different combinations of injectors and ignition systems. It's crazy flexible. So whatever your car is, I'm pretty sure you could make Speeduino work with it. Yeah. KHT said, my friend was interested in making an ECU for their old Subaru with no OBD2. Yeah, well, if you put in a Speeduino ECU, you get CAN bus and all sorts of things. It's a really, really cool project, and Josh has done an excellent job with it. So it's it is definitely something I'm looking forward to playing with once we get it on the car. Wagon Loads asked, is there anyone here who is an expert on RTCs? I don't know. If anyone here is an expert on RTCs, please speak up. I have been battling RTCs recently. I've done there's an ECU project that I ended up going through 3 different RTCs, like different chips. I ended up redesigning the board with different chips because we were having problems, and I ended up we ended up getting an RTC that worked eventually properly. But that was for I can't show that design because that's a commercial client project under NDA. That's interesting. So Wagon Load said, does anyone know if there's an RTC that has a register that says how many clock ticks is 1 second? I want to run an RTC on Mars time, 24 hours and 37 minutes per day. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, the length of a day on Mars is very close to the length of a day on Earth because of the rate of spin, etc. Mars is on an orbit that is further away from the sun than us. We are much closer to the sun, and we are spinning and rotating, and Mars is spinning and rotating and orbiting, I should say. But because of the rate of spin, Mars has a day that is just slightly longer than Earth's. On our time, it is 24 hours and 37 minutes, as Wagon Load says. So if you want to make a clock that covers a day, a Mars day, then you can't have one that goes for 24 hours. It has to go for a certain, however many seconds it is. So there are some interesting ways or interesting things about this. For those of you who have read the Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars trilogy, which is it's a set of sci-fi books that talk about terraforming Mars and a rebellion where Mars separates itself from Earth essentially and becomes independent of Earth. It starts off as a colony. They do all sorts of terraforming so that they're trying to make the surface of the planet livable. And over the course, anyway, I won't give away too much of it, but the point is one of the things they have to figure out is how to deal with Mars time versus Earth time. And the solution that they come up with is to treat the extra 37 minutes as like a bonus where they so what they do is they have the clock that runs for 24 hours and it gets to midnight and then it stops. All the clocks pause for 37 minutes. They just don't move. And then after the 37 minutes is up, they start moving again. So you get a 24-hour day with like a witching hour, extra 37 minutes after midnight, where there is no time. Now, obviously, that is not a practical solution for so many reasons, but it is kind of an interesting idea. And for a clock to stop for 37 minutes, obviously, it needs to be keeping track of time because it needs to know. It needs to know how long that 37 minutes is, so the clocks don't really stop. So outside the box there's Sky precession would occur. Yeah, and Wagon Load says, I just want to slow the RTC down. Oh, Neil said the Mars TV show was really good. I didn't know there was a Mars TV show. Are you talking about Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars as a TV show? I had no idea that was even a thing.
Notification. 5 minutes remaining.
5 minutes. 5 minutes until we get to midday, and then the 37 minutes of... Life on Mars, asked Keith. Keith. Neil said 2016. 2016, was there a TV series of 2016 Mars TV series? Was that Life on Mars? Or was it like an adaptation of Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars? Oh, okay. That Mars TV series. No, I think that is different. Mars TV series. I'm just pulling this up on here. Before Mars. Yeah, no, so that's different. It's a different story. So it is... Oh, for the Emma Newman series is based on Stephen Petranek book, How We'll Live on Mars. Okay, yeah, so this is... looks like a dramatization of something about how it could happen. No, I'm talking about Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. Red Mars series. Yeah, Red Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars. From 24... No, Green Mars 1993, 96. When? The Mars trilogy. Yeah, when was the first one released? Red Mars. The funny thing is, it's set in 2020. It starts in 2026. And it was written back, when was it written? In 93, 92, 92, 91. Oh, publication 1992. Okay. So back in 1992, it might have seemed like, yeah, 2026, that's about when we will have people on Mars. Don't think it's going to happen. Not in 2026 anyway. Oh, which reminds me. So, yes, people have a very poor idea of time, and being able to project things into the future, our concept of how long things are, it's really screwy. Yeah, Elon better get cracking. So there's a podcast that I listen to called Dear Hank and John, and it's done by Hank and John Green. And at some point in the past, like a long time ago, they made a bet. So Hank made a bet saying that we would have humans on Mars. I think it was by 2026 was the bet. And John said, no, we wouldn't have humans on Mars by 2026. And what they were betting for was that if we do not have humans on Mars by 2026 and John wins the bet, then they're going to rename their podcast. And the podcast is going to change from Dear Hank and John, and it's going to become Dear John and Hank. And it's a long-running joke that is mentioned on almost every podcast, usually at the start. So, anyway, 2026. So maybe in 2026, the Dear Hank and John podcast is going to be renamed to Dear John and Hank, because we will not yet have people on the first colonial voyage to Mars. I don't think it'll be far off. It's not going to be like another... this is a big statement. I don't think it'll be another 20 years or something. It'll be, within some reasonable period of 2026. But I don't think we're going to actually have people on Mars in 2026. If we did...
Mitchell R. said, OXRS, lol.
Yeah, OXRS. Yes! Okay. That was
Mitchell
it.
R. said, OXRS, lol.
Yeah. Scott said there, added the straight USB-C, but it's a slightly rough version and still needs a custom symbol. All right. Stream is over.
System notification. Stream is over.
Look at this. How good is this to have live updates? While the stream is happening, Scott has just updated this. So the commit 1 minute ago, has added a footprint for, here we go, where is it? 1 minute ago. USB-C keycard mod, added straight up USB-C. So that is the commit with the, the footprint. Thank you so much for doing this, Scott. This is really cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, one-way trip to Mars. Dodgy said, so the plan is to take stupid and export it to the galaxy. You're right. Crispian said colonization will take a while longer.
Scott Miller said rabbits are worse than squirrels.
There is a very, Jordan pointed out I still have 37 bonus minutes. Yeah, there is a huge difference between sending people somewhere and bringing them straight back again. And when I say straight back, I don't mean like there for a couple of hours and come back. I mean there for some period of time. And the interesting thing with Mars is because it is, Mars is not orbiting Earth, unlike the moon. So sending people to the moon is in orbit around us and it stays at approximately the same distance constantly, which means that the windows of when you can send and return things to it are fairly fluid. You've got a lot of flexibility in terms of timing and how you do things. With Mars, it's different. Because of the way the orbits work, so we are orbiting the Sun, Mars is orbiting the Sun, there are certain periods where we are close together and certain periods where we are far apart. And also, you have to consider that when you are traveling to Mars, you are not traveling to where it is now, you are traveling to where it is going to be at the point that you get there. So you have to have like an intersecting course. So it means that you can't do something, you can't travel to Mars whenever you want to. You need, just because of energy and time requirements. It has to be done in certain windows when the orbits align in certain ways. And likewise, you can only come back when those windows are open again and the orbits are aligned in certain ways. Which means that the mission profiles that are possible going to Mars and then coming back again are quite limited. So a return mission where you send astronauts to Mars and then have them come back again is very different to colonization. That is a whole extra level of complication because of the self-sustaining nature of it. Having to have access to all the resources that you need to stay there indefinitely is very different to taking everything with you and then coming back again. Oh yeah, Crispian said minimum return trip is around 18 months. Yes. So there are, I only have like a passing amateur, this is really cool level of understanding of this. I do not have an expert level understanding at all of the orbital mechanics of the way Mars and Earth align and how you would transfer from one to the other. But yes, Crispian says lots on the NASA website. Yep. And if you want to learn more, there are some interesting YouTube channels like, hi, I'm Scott Manley. So if you watch Scott Manley's YouTube channel, there is a lot of interesting stuff there about different missions and how things work. Crispian says, I love orbital mechanics. Yeah, it is a very fun, it is a very fun thing. But I have not dived down that particular rabbit hole because I do not have the time, sadly. Oh, Paul! Paul! Very cool to see you in the chat, Paul. Kerbal Space Program, says Paul.
System notification, yeah. Peter is hangry. 5 minutes ago.
Yep. Andrew said it'd take me a while to save up 18 months of leave. Yeah. So, like, you're working a regular job and you say to your boss, I need to take 18 months off because I'm going to go to Mars. And then you travel to Mars, you do your stuff, you come back again, and you go back to your regular job. That's exactly how it works. Yes. Yeah. Crispian said Scott Manley is my fave. Yes. Scott Manley. I just, whenever I say his name, I have to say it like that. And if you've ever seen his videos, you would understand why. Yeah. Topic before? Yes, we are.
Mitchell R. said topic before 15 minutes, lol grin.
Yeah. We are now in the into the bonus 37 minutes. We are on Mars time, into the Mars witching hour time now. Where are we? Where are we? Okay. Now, am I going to get into... let's see. Hang on. Where is... I'm going to try launching Eagle for the first time in a while, which means it is probably going to ask me to log in. Oh, yes, it wants me to sign in. No, I'm going to try ignoring the sign in and see if it'll still let me do stuff while I'm offline. Rack 32, hardware, S3. Yeah, okay, here we go. So, right at the start of this stream, someone was asking about Rack 32. All right, so this is... Do you want to open blah, blah, blah? Yes, I do. So this is the current version, or is it? It may not be. I think I might have pulled this into Fusion Electronics at some point. But anyway, yes, I did, because it no longer has this big analog, this linear voltage regulator sitting up here. It now has a switch mode regulator on it. So this is an old version of the Rack 32, and it's got an ESP32 Vroom 32 with the classic ESP32 on it. And there is, at some point, a long time ago, I started doing this. So this is an S3 module on it. So this is the Vroom 32 S3, because I was doing an S3 conversion and getting rid of the CP2102. So down here in the, if I zoom this way, you'll be able to see it. Down here, on the current version of the Rack 32.
Said bloody rabbits.
Yeah, rabbits. In this area right here, there is a CP2102N USB to serial converter, and you can see the data lines off the USB connector. And here, since we've been talking about USB-C connectors, you can see here exactly what I was talking about previously. You see what I've done is taken the USB power, the 5 volts V in, and dropped it with a via, with a track under the board, and brought it back up to join it here, because this mounting hole gets directly in the way. So
Mitchell R. said beep beep, zoom lol.
Yeah, so I couldn't run a large track directly through here very conveniently. Well, you can get a track through there, but it's just in the way. This hole is in the way. So the idea of making that a plated through hole and just running a trace straight to that hole, and then you run a track down underneath, that is clever. I like that. I'm going to do that in future. But you can see here I did the thing where I brought it out and ran a track under the PCB to join these two pins together. And what else? What was I getting at? Oh yeah, so the point is, what you're looking at here was halfway through the process of ripping up the Rack 32 and replacing the ESP32 with an S3 and replacing the voltage regulator with this switch mode regulator. Now, there is a newer version that leapfrogged this one that still has the old ESP32 on it, but it has the switch mode regulator on it. which I think is in Fusion 360. But what I was about to do was route USB from here directly to the S3 because we don't need the USB serial converter anymore, and route all of these I/O pins to other pins on the S3. But one thing that I have thought would be interesting is a version of this with an RP2040 on it, because, well, it's just an interesting processor. What it would mean is we would lose Wi-Fi, which is probably okay, because the whole point of this typically is that you would use it with Ethernet. So normally you would run Ethernet and either power through this back connector or use power over Ethernet. So we've got the PoE regulator down here. Hang on a second. Ah, that's a little bit better. Now I can speak a bit more like Scott Manley. And so the, yeah, anyway, an RP2040 version. I would be interested to know what the particular use case is for an RP2040 version, because I kind of like the idea, but I don't know why. If you're doing it because you wanted to run MicroPython, which is quite valid, like the firmware that runs on the Rack32 is written using Arduino, you could do it in MicroPython instead, but you can also run MicroPython on an ESP32. So there would need to be Scott said Wi-Fi in the rack is kind of silly. Yeah, I mean, it can be reasonable, but, oh, and also Scott said now there's a symbol. Yes, a symbol for the USB-C connector. Yeah, Wagon Load says, I have an ESP32 S3 with UFL antenna connector on it. Yeah, so in the past I have sold versions of the Rack32 in two versions. One with this PCB antenna, and I also put on it a version with the UFL connector. And the UFL connector is directly on the module, so it doesn't actually mean any change to the PCB at all. It's just, you just put a different module on it. Either the version with the antenna connector or the version with the UFL connector. So, oh, Ben Straker asked, is an RP2040 same as a Pico? Yes. So the RP2040 is the name of the microcontroller that is on the Raspberry Pi Pico. So when I say, Scott said, and a screenshot of the footprint version in the repo in your DMs with a bonus feature. Ooh, bonus feature. Pre-routed? Pre-routed? Maybe. Okay, I'm going to click on this. Click and click. Here we go. Okay, bonus feature. Ooh, bonus feature being that the grounds are already routed to these pads, which is pretty cool. Is this pre-routed as well? Because I would probably prefer not to have that. But it's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Nice. Oh, Ben said, with it being done in C++, can it be rebuilt for a Pico? Yeah, you can run Arduino code on a Pico. Scott said, yes, pre-combined data lines. Yes, so this is linking them together. It'd be really nice if the connector manufacturers did that internally, so that we had two fewer pins and...
System notification. Peter is super hangry. 15 minutes ago.
outside the box. Oh, okay. So what Imi was trying to do was to read out outside the box's comment. Oh, you wanted to see what it would sound like if the voice thing said, "Fly safe, I'm Scott Manley." There's probably a voice that would sound quite good if you picked the correct voice. Hang on, I'm going to find it in the chat. I'm going to... Can I say it? No, there isn't a way for me to... All right, I'm going to try this. Say, fly safe. Let's see if this works. Is it say or tell? No. Say.
Superhouse TV said, "Fly safe. I'm Scott Manley."
It doesn't say the right, it doesn't sound at all. Anyway, yes. It was the right words, but not the right voice. So, right, okay. Footprint optimization. Yeah, having these ground pads pre-linked to here, that's cool. I like that. With these, I think I would want a bit more flexibility. And sometimes, so you can see here, for example, that this pin and this pin are joined together and come off on the left. And over here we've got this pin and this pin joined together and they come off on the right. So if we go over the top with that one, no, it always has to be, yeah, it doesn't actually matter which way around. You always end up with this one on the left and this one on the right.
Imogen Ann said we need a Scott Manley soundbite.
Yeah. I need a soundboard. I should set myself up a soundboard so I can do Last of Us quotes and other things, and some Scott Manley. Yeah, okay. What am I doing? My Scott Manley window is always open. Right. What am I doing? That's right. So I was talking about, I'm going to keep that open because I need to remind myself to follow up on that USB-C footprint.
Mitchell R. said we can do all of that grin. Just need the audio files tongue out.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So it could be done in the text-to-speech thing. Yeah, that's cool. It already has it because Mitchell already added a quick play thing where it would play the intro. So we could do it with others. Yeah, I was thinking of something like just using a Stream Deck, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, part of a project to build an RP20 based soundboard into a speaker. Right. All right, so question for the audience. Would there be any call
Mitchell
for...
R. said yeah, and also for control of things we can add that. You can just write Python. Many features avail.
Yeah, okay, so was that in... Oh, you can just write Python. Oh, cool. So we could be adding things to that chat sound thingy. I've got to get my brain back on track. All right, so the question. This is the question to the audience. Would anyone care for a version of the RAC32 with an RP2040 on it? Or any other processor? I don't know. Is there a particular thing that people would want? Now, the issue, of course, is going to be software support because the firmware for this and the library that provides all the important integration is written for the ESP32. And there is a version of this which Austin has made, which is an ESP8266 on it. So Is there a particular reason? Ah, RIP Z80. Yeah, Stephen. So, Stephen said, what about a Z80 version with a sad face? And RIP Z80. So for those of you who hadn't heard the news, the Z80 microprocessor went out of production, I think this week, the week just gone. Or it was announced that it's going out of production or something. I'm not sure of the exact timing. So that has been produced, I think, since the 1970s. When did the Z80, when was it released? I don't know. Anyway, the Z80, the classic old chip, has been still produced in different updated formats with new silicon, like silicon revisions over the years, until this week, essentially. And it's now gone, must be like 40 or 50 years it was in production. It has now just gone out of production. Oh, excuse me. All right. Scott said, a version with a full power ARM or Intel chip. Now, that is an option, but the way I see this is if you want something like a rack-mounted controller and you wanted something to run Home Assistant on it or OpenHAB or Node-RED or whatever, say a Raspberry Pi level machine, what you would do is you would have the Raspberry Pi mounted in the rack. So this is actually what I do. I've got one of these, and then you can mount a Raspberry Pi inside the same enclosure, and yeah, so this can do the I/O processing and run the screen and the buttons and that sort of thing, and then but it's really just meant to be like an I/O controller. And then if you wanted to do higher level stuff, you would do that on something like a Raspberry Pi. But that is interesting. And Jordan said maybe an RPi compute module connector. So it could be a version of this with the footprint to put a CM4 on it. Oh, Wagon Load says, I want to rebuild my S100 bus with modern chips, including ESP32, SIMS, microSD, I2C, etc. Yeah, Scott said, you're going to have to make a drop-in Z80 emulator now. Yeah, I'm sure there are already Z80 emulators. Many, many of them.
Scott Miller said, love it when my snark gets taken seriously. Lol.
Yeah. Oh, Ben says there are 2 I2C on Pico. Maybe you can use that for more I/O. Yeah, there are. I am not averse to the idea. I actually kind of like the idea of making an ESP32 with an RP2040 on it. But I'm not sure if there is enough call for it to justify the effort involved in designing the board. And it would basically fragment. I mean, the thing is that the market for this is so small that it's like half a dozen people. And pretty much everybody that is ever going to be interested in these already has them. Like, people aren't interested in the Rack 32s. So producing more of them is not really going to be of much interest to people. And doing another version of it then just fragments that even more. So half a dozen people would have ESP32 based Rack 32s, half a dozen people would have RP2040 based Rack 32s. In fact, it couldn't even be a Rack 32 anymore because it wouldn't be an ESP32. We'd have to come up with some other name for it. So, yeah. Yeah. I would kind of, I don't know why, but I kind of want to do an RP2040 based Rack 32. I can't explain it. A rack
Mitchell
pie.
R said rack 2040 Rackby.
Yeah, rack pie. Scott said, good point. If your design was in KiCad instead of Eagle, maybe someone here would do the work. Yeah, Pico rack. Yes. All right, I'm going to close that and quit out of Eagle. Back to here. And if I refresh this again, 18 minutes ago, where was the last commit? This one, symbol, now with symbol 2. Yes. Yeah. Oh, that is so cool. As is this. All right, now we are getting towards the end of our Mars bonus time. It is now 2 hours and 20, we're 26 minutes into our 37 minutes of bonus time. Mitchell said,
Mitchell R said if you made the processor just a header, then you just make CPU boards. So like you want to do 2040, just make the board. Or upgrade to C6, just make new board.
yeah, maybe. I find that trying to do that thing is often really, it's a lot harder than it sounds, because you have to find equivalent I/O on all of those different things. It's like designing a new shield format where the processor board plugs into something, and what you could do is make a footprint to put something like a Raspberry Pi Pico onto it, and then you could design other boards that go onto the Pico footprint. So it's the sort of thing where it would make sense to find some existing I/O, like say the Feather format. What we could do is have the Rack 32 be a feather, what do they call it? The thing that goes on top of a feather. So, oh, hang on. We can fix that. There.
Mitchell R said, normally yay, in this case SPI, I2C, PWR, network, and that is it. Then should cater for pretty much everything you'd need.
Yeah, and of course you need some spare IOs. So you need IOs for things like the chip select on
Scott
SPI.
Miller said especially GPIO layout sucks for swapping things.
ESP, yeah, layout sucks for swapping things. Yes. M.2. So there are so many things. Like if we looked at Ada fruit feather. So this particular footprint, like with this I/O, Adafruit make boards with different things. Like there is a feather board with a 2040 on it. There are feather boards with different versions of ESP32 on it, etc. So it could be done to make a carrier board that you plug. Oh, and the other thing is you got to bring USB through. That's something just seeing this board here reminded me, because these have got USB connectors on them. So you got to bring USB through from the carrier board up into the processor board. And let's see, overview, introducing. Oh, this must be old. Wings. Yeah, so these are all different feather boards, feather wings and feather board. Yeah. So one thing that could be done would be to put a footprint, make the Rack 32 with no processor on it, and put on a footprint for putting different processor boards on top by selecting a footprint like the feather footprint. But you would need to be able to bring USB-C, not USB-C, just USB up through onto the board and whatever processor board you had plugged in. Can we see this image in its original size? Original, here we go, huge size. So we've got different feather boards with different things on them. Many, many different feathers. All these different variations.
System notification, stream is over GHAAA. I give up.
Yes. Give up, Mr. Squirrel. Right. Right. I am going to stop because I am tired of talking. Oh, my energy level is falling right now. And my throat is suffering. Oh, Crispian said we're packing to move house next week, so although we'll be watching as usual, won't be able to visit next week. That's a pity. I hope your move goes well, though. And it is smooth, but it will be a pity that you can't make it to the barbecue. So, final thing, wrapping up. Before I do finally go away, remember next Sunday, after the live stream, is the monthly Super Lab barbecue. And as Stephen pointed out last month's was the 1 year anniversary of the barbecue. So these barbecues have been going for a year now. Which, I don't know if it seems like they've been going for a lot longer than a year. It feels like they've been going forever. Or it's hard to believe that it has actually gone for a year. It seems like there have been more than 12 of them, but that's it. It's, yes. Yes, so cookies. If you're coming along, there's no obligation on this, of course. You don't have to bring anything. If you want to come to the barbecues, I will have sausages and bread. Hopefully Sauce Spot will be here. I'll have soft drinks. You do not need to bring anything. If you feel like bringing something, that is cool, of course, and appreciated. I'm going to try making some cookies. And hopefully Tekla will come as well and bring cookies, and we'll see if her cookies are better than mine. Anyway, come along, barbecue next Sunday. Check out the cookies. And in the meantime, I hope you have a fantastic week. And now, go and build something awesome.